This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on India taking lead in seeking 3 years IPR waiver for COVID-related medical products at WTO. The participants are Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Manas Pratim Bhuya, journalist.
As coronavirus pandemic continued to ravage countries across the world, there has been a renewed focus to ramp up manufacturing of COVID-19 vaccines. India has also been at the forefront calling for united global efforts for enhancing availability of the vaccines globally. In that context, India has taken a lead role in seeking 3 years of intellectual property rights waiver for COVID-19 related materials and products, mainly vaccines. So we have with us diplomat Sajjanhar. So how do you see this proposal by India along with South Africa to seek waiver on COVID-19 vaccines?
It's a very good move. Secondly, it is not related only to vaccines. It is the whole spectrum of treatment, prevention, containment of COVID-19. To go back in terms of its genesis, it started in October last year, October 2020. And that was the time when a joint proposal was given by India and South Africa to the World Trade Organization and particularly to the TRIPS Council, the trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights. They have a council where they discuss and determine the provisions of the TRIPS agreement. So there the proposal was given. There were some discussions that were held, but at that time it was thought that it was too broad and not very clear. But India and South Africa have been taking it forward, and this proposal, I think, got a shot in the arm when on the 5th of this month, President Joe Biden of the United States, he also weighed in terms of supporting this proposal. And on Friday, that is 2 days ago, this proposal has again been formally submitted at the WTO, in which, as I mentioned, it's not only related to vaccines, it is also diagnostics, it also includes drugs, it includes therapeutics, it includes personal protection kits, it includes masks, and all the other elements that are required for dealing with the COVID-19. Earlier, when the proposal had been given in October 2020, then these two countries, India and South Africa, had put in that this waiver was being sought from the WTO TRIPS Council for X number of years. Now they have made it more specific. They've said it should be for 3 years, and after every year, the TRIPS Council could go in to have a look at what is the seriousness of the COVID-19 pandemic, and if it is required, it can be extended. If it is not required, then the methodology of withdrawing that waiver could also be considered. So I think great clarity has been provided. Now, India and South Africa have said that they have the support of about 120 countries, but the co-sponsors of this proposal are about 62 other countries, several of them significant countries in their own right, and also important groups. For instance, the Africa group supported it, the LDC, the least developing country group, they have supported it. Indonesia is there, Zimbabwe is there, Egypt, Pakistan, and several other countries. Of course, this doesn't include the name of the United States, but United States has also been speaking to countries like Japan, like Switzerland. These countries should also extend support. And the European Union has said that they are willing to discuss the proposal.
What is your expectation about the proposal getting through at the WTO? And what is the likely timeline that you are looking at for WTO to take a concrete decision on the issue?
You know, that's a very difficult question to give an accurate answer to, because I have worked at the WTO for more than 5 years, and then I have been engaged with the working of the WTO for a long period of time. So many of these things, as you would say, that dotting the I's and crossing the T's, all these things can take a long time. But I think the advantage that this proposal has is, the proponents of the proposal have, is that the United States is standing with them. And in the United States, I think that has really changed the whole scenario of this proposal. We have been able to get so many countries to come on board. That is principally because the United States has given its okay and given its support to this. And this could be fast-tracked. This could be taken forward very quickly. But I see one particular issue also as far as the United States is concerned, because the US has said that they are willing to provide a waiver only for vaccines, not for medicines, not for therapeutics, not for diagnostics, not for, the PPE kits and the masks and other things. So that is one difference, that is one divergence that is there between India, South Africa and the United States. And the other aspect is in terms of the duration of the waiver. I think what the United States had mentioned is that the waiver could be for 16 to 18 months, while we are asking for a 36-month waiver. But I'm sure we have put in all these elements. Whenever a proposal is put up at the WTO, there is always a matter of give and take. It's not that a submission is accepted in toto, in full. There is negotiation. So I'm sure there are several elements in this which we will negotiate, and the urgency at this moment is that we should be able to get it done very quickly. Because what India has said is it is not only the waiver of this vaccines and other things of the intellectual property rights, but it also has to do with the technology transfer, and there should also be know-how sharing, because just waiving the right to the intellectual property is not good enough. If the companies have to manufacture, then technology will have to be transferred, know-how will have to be transferred, manufacturing capacities will have to be built up, and production will have to start. So in that sense, we need decent enough time frame in which all these aspects can be looked at.
Mr. Sarjanhar, at a virtual meeting with top European Union leaders on May 8, Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself called for European Union support to the proposal to waive patents on COVID-19 related products, particularly vaccines. So in that context, in fact, following the summit, the European leaders, they said that in fact licensing, price of licensing and investment for capacity building are also very, very important issues to boost production apart from the waiver of the patent on vaccines. So how do you see these issues?
I think these are very, very important, very significant, very relevant elements. And this is exactly what I had said, that it is not only the intellectual property right waiver, it's not only the IPR waiver. There has to be technology transfer, there has to be funding, there has to be investment, there has to be manufacturing capacity that has to be developed, because all that will take both time as well as money. So I think all sides will really have to work together. And in that context, the European Union is very right that some sort of a licensing framework will have to be evolved. But I think that's a matter of detail. We have to take it step by step. You would recall, last week, the USTR, Catherine Tai, the US Trade Representative, she had conversation both with the South African minister as well as with the Indian minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal. And they also had discussions about this in terms of how to navigate this proposal through the WTO. So I think all these countries will have to work together. All of them will have to come on the same page. As you said very correctly at the beginning of the program, that the WTO and all its agencies like the WTO TRIPS Council, all of them work on the basis of consensus. So each and every one would have to be brought on board. And at the moment, I see that the most resistance or reluctance coming in from the side of the European Union. You would have seen that 2 days ago, we had the G20 Health Summit that was organized by the Prime Minister of Italy and the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. And there also in the Rome Declaration, it has been mentioned that there should be voluntary licensing, there should be voluntary technology transfer, and that additional vaccine manufacture should be undertaken in consonance with the existing rules of the trade-related intellectual property rights agreement. So till the day before yesterday, we have not really seen any movement on the ground as far as the G20 and the European Union is concerned. But I understand that this proposal that has been tabled 2 days ago, that is on Friday, that is going to come up for discussion on the 30th. And then we should be able to get some clearer idea as to what is the time frame in which we could expect expect an approval and concurrence to this waiver.
India is looking at procuring more number of vaccines to address the domestic scenario in India. So how do you see the issue of US invoking the Defense Production Act in early February? So there is a view in India that the Defense Production Act of the US has put some roadblock in supply of raw materials by American companies to other countries, including India. And our External Affairs Minister is starting a visit to US tomorrow. So how do you see this issue actually? Do you think it is impacting supply of raw materials for production of vaccines to India from US?
That's a parallel issue because this is the issue of reliability and transparency and resilience of supply chains. And here the Serum Institute of India, they have been wanting these raw materials and inputs from the United States. And we saw that on the 5th of February, President Joe Biden, he invoked the Defense Production Act. Around the end of last month, when the matter was taken up, of course, the matter is being taken up with the United States at different levels for the last several months. But I think when the gravity of the situation in India became clear to the United States, then they have agreed to reconsider and to waive the provisions of that and to make the supply chain issue, remove that so that all the material that is required by India, that are made available. You know, when India has asked for this waiver, it is not to manufacture vaccines only for its own use. It is for the use of the whole world. You know, this is the point that the Prime Minister has always made, that India's capacities will be used for not only Indian people, but for the whole world. Of course, India's requirements come first, and that is what we will take care of. But it is also very telling. The total number of vaccines that have been administered in the world, they are about 1.6 billion. You know, about 200 million by India, 300 million by US, 400 million by China, and so on and so forth. But the low-income countries, it is only about 0.3% that those countries have got the vaccination. We have to go by the dictum that no one is safe till everyone is safe. You know, you can't create walls around your countries, however developed and prosperous and rich the countries might be. You cannot create walls so that people from outside will not come. So if there is this pandemic raging in countries of Asia, in countries of Africa, or in South America, then the whole world is still at risk. So we have to make sure that about 70% of the world population, they will have to be vaccinated. So the point I'm making is that going forward, the world will need huge quantities of these vaccines. And it is for those purposes that India has put forward this proposal, because otherwise the low-income countries will not be able to get these vaccines, and the whole world will continue to stay at risk.
How do you see India's leadership role in pushing for this proposal at the WTO to waive patents on COVID-19 vaccines and other related products? So how do you see our efforts overall at the global stage?
I think it is very commendable. You know, we have been taking a leadership role wherever we possibly can. And right from the beginning, you know, by the first proposal that was given by India to the WTO was in October last year. By then, we even did not know, you know, what will be the vaccines, what will be the production, what will be the pricing. But we have been trying to walk ahead of the curve. We have been trying to foresee what the issues will be. We have been trying to foresee what the obstacles are going to be. And right at the beginning, we had determined that it is going to be the IPRs of these vaccines as and when they come, as and when they are brought into the market for use. And that is why we took this issue right at the beginning. I'm happy that it is the determined effort of the Indian leadership and of the Indian negotiators, both at WTO as also at bilateral level, that we are starting to see positive movement as far as this issue is concerned.
Thank you, Diplomat Sajjanhar, for your deep insights into a very, very complex issue. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Manas.
You were listening to a discussion on India taking lead in seeking 3 years IPR waiver for COVID-related medical products at WTO. The participants were Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Manas Pratim Bhuya, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.